Hello. Today I'm going to be talking with somebody quite special, somebody who I got to know through my healing practice and had the benefit of helping a family member of theirs. But I'm really more interested in hearing about their experience as a community manager, giving back. This is somebody from a completely different part of the world. And I love to hear different cultures, different ideas, what their spirit of giving is, and what we've both been taught is as you give value, well, then money follows. I'm really interested to see, whether it be money, whether it just be value in general, feeling, amazing on top of the world. I'd really like to see where she's found that giving value has actually added benefit to her life. As always, I never know where these conversations are going to go, but I suspect that you're in for a real treat. All righty, Cindy, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to hear about how you are overcoming adversity. This is not at all where I expected this conversation to go, so I'm already really interested to see how you're using some of the superpowers that you've learned in order to conquer your outer reality with your inner reality.
Okay, so here in New Zealand, we are going through some extreme times, testing our inner world, how we react to it. And for me, I've definitely, since doing spiritual work and awakening, which has only been not that long ago, possibly a year and a half ago, I've learned to dial down the fear. And to dial down the fears is it's just always a very simple answer. Love is always the answer.
So if you're in a state
Because
of fear, how do you personally find your way to love? Or
okay,
do you
so
not let yourself get in fear? Maybe that's a better question.
yeah, when we chatter in our mind, that's we're in our mind because we've been given our mind to keep our body safe, but we are not our body and we are not our mind, we are our soul.
Mm.
So when we start to move into fear, we're moving into this duality where we are separating our body and our soul. We are separating and we're fearful for our body, basically. And we're living in our mind and our body. But when we cohesively know that we are love, that we are whole, then we move towards love. And that's where we surrender into safety and moving away from fear, moving away from contraction and more into expansiveness. And whenever I actually, before I got into a spiritual awakening and did EMF with Peter Sage and
Mm.
knew about healing or any of these kinds of things, I had fear every morning when I woke up. I woke up my daily routine. I wanted to say routine because I didn't choose it to be a routine, but my outlook was always in fear. And I actually got my freedom when I realized that it's just very simple. There is only love. It's actually that simple.
And so, can you delve in a little bit more about that? Like when you say that you would wake up in a state of fear, fear probably means different things for different people. Fear could certainly be scarcity, or fear could literally be like, "Hey, I'm afraid for my life." Can you maybe share to whichever ability that you're comfortable to on what sort of fear were you experiencing? And then, if you were feeling fear, what was it about Peter's program that kind of stuck out to you?
Okay, so when we got the COVID lockdown, I definitely got stuck because I looked around me and that whole kind of outlook and the feeling around me and the news and the people and the country and everything was kind of living in fear.
Hmm.
And people were nervous and they were scared. And I looked around me and saw people vibrating low and getting it's a word that I don't like to use, but there were a lot of people who decided to depart here.
Ah.
and because of fear
Yeah.
and separation. We were locked down. We weren't allowed to see anyone. We had to be in our homes. And I think the first one was like 8 weeks. So we had to, there were people who couldn't reach out at all.
Yeah.
And they were living alone, and particularly elderly, maybe didn't have any tech, and they were just isolated. But anyway, I looked at this and I decided, and there were people that were, eating too much, drinking too much, taking too many drugs, whatever they needed to do to try and put a plaster on that hurt.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I decided for myself that I needed to put one foot forward every day and create a little bubble for myself to keep going. So I decided that because I couldn't see my friends, that I was going to sort of create virtual friends. So I turned off all my media and I subscribed to all, great talkers, great speakers and inspirational speakers. So I subscribed on YouTube, on social media, to all these great messages. And I thought, well, if I can't see my friends, these are going to be my friends in lockdown. And what happened then was there was a free seminar through Real Summit, Real Success Summit. I can't remember the name, but before I would never ever press a button on something because I would be suspicious of life. But I pressed the button and I got this free seminar because they wanted to help people in lockdown. And there were all these inspirational speakers, and Peter Sage was one of them. And I heard the name Peter Sage, and I'm from South Africa. And when I left South Africa, I left in pain because I had seen untold suffering in South Africa,
Sure.
and I left in pain. So I kind of had unfinished business with Africa. But I heard that Peter is a businessman, and also that he had ties to South Africa. He did charity work in South Africa. So I wrote his name on the board, on my vision board, and I didn't know why. I didn't know him. I didn't know why. And then I left it for a bit. And out of Peter's program, I signed up to USM Ultimate Self Mastery. And on one of his talks, he was talking about AI. He was going to this AI meeting in Dubai, I think it was. I think it was Dubai. And so I put it on the board, and I wrote his name, and I wrote AI, and I thought, whoa, this is like really, really intriguing. I don't know the man, and I'm writing it on my board, and I'm going to just send some love to this like symposium, because the reason for the AI meeting was to create a body of a group that would monitor AI, that it keeps on an enlightened path, on a good path, and it doesn't veer to the dark. So I thought this was amazing. It just absolutely intrigued me. I don't know anything about AI, but I know the concept of AI, and I knew that it could veer dark if we don't keep a balance on it. So I was just thinking, hey, I'm going to send love to this symposium. And then Peter said that he couldn't go for whatever reason. It was a paperwork thing or something. I thought, oh, okay, that's the end of that, forgot about it. Then what happened was when I went to Tenerife for Peter's birthday, I met a person, and this person got Peter the invite to the AI meeting. And I thought, whoa, that is a bit like intriguing.
Yeah.
Did I actually meet this person? And I thought, whoa, okay. So this person, I send them love, and I send this this kind of great wishes and energy, so that that body that governs the AI has the correct energy. Because my feeling is that there would be a lot of technical people there, but they possibly need a kind of a bit of a spiritual kind of energy boost
That's
that they may or
fascinating to
may
think
not know
about.
about.
That is so fascinating to think about as far as consciousness, right? My mind's been kind of following and almost creating its own story and wondering, oh my God, like, the consciousness itself is going to be informed by whatever information that we allow it to consume. But if it's artificial intelligence and it can build upon its own consciousness and reason out what things actually mean, I hadn't actually considered the implications of a spiritual influence over AI. That's fascinating. And is
I
that
heard
something that you gravitated to?
it's just something that I've been led to. I don't know how, but I've been led. So I heard Peter say, "Oh, he was the only one that had that was there to represent an upliftment of consciousness, but he didn't go to the meeting."
Was that the one that it was going to be on Richard Branson's like private island, and then
It
Richard
was,
Branson
and the
found out
person
that
that
he was a felon and because of Pentonville whole BS, and so he didn't get
I
invited.
don't know, it was a paperwork thing, but I thought that was the end of that sort of aspect as to why, because I wrote it on my vision board and I didn't know why.
Mm,
So very intriguingly, when I went to Tenerife, I met the person who went to the symposium, the
hmm
AI symposium, and had this idea. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do an artwork for it. I'm going to do an artwork to put my intention into the artwork of beauty, of raising consciousness and raising frequency towards that aspect.
hmm
The I don't know if the word policing is, I talk maybe of a universal balance of it, because there's light and dark in every aspect of everything. So last year, June, the
hmm
next iteration of my AI thoughts, and I have no much idea about the AI world. Then on the weekend, I met my daughter and she said to me that she had created this app, and hey mom, AI is so cool. She taught herself how to make this app and she showed me an app, and I was like, wow, that baby, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like this, the AI taught you how to do this. So you ask this app a question and they guide you and they lead you. And I thought, oh, that is really great, because AI can be used to for education, medical use. It could be used for, growing food, predicting things, harnessing
Physics,
thoughts,
chemistry, right? We can create our
anything.
own artificial environments and have it just actually run through the different sequences, and then we can actually examine it.
Amazing
Yeah.
amazingness, right? And so it started to give me a tinge about, what could happen with AI for me and everyday person.
Yeah.
And so that was the next iteration of the AI. The other intriguing thing is, on last week, I met my cousin who I hadn't spoken to, honestly, I would possibly think, possibly for maybe nearly 40 years. And she lives in Ireland. And she reached out to me and she said to me she would love to do a healing hypnosis with me where I access my higher self, and that yeah, I have some. Everybody's got their story, and
Yeah.
I had some questions about, like, how to move forward with certain things.
hmm
And in this healing meditation, this is so intriguing. Came this message. One of my questions is for me is that I have totally changed since I did the spiritual awakening and the EMF course. I was like the warrior girl businesswoman,
Mm.
and I was kind of torching forth.
hmm
And the reason why I did that is that I always wanted to make money to help my family and to help others. And I have a want in my heart that I take my earthly dollars and I translate it into eternal love energy.
Mm.
So I had this blockage about money. I was always like, oh, to me when I was very little, um, money equal pain to me, because what happened was that my dad left us very wealthy, and then a stepfather came along, and there was a lot of money involved, and that was like an opening for him to abuse
Yeah.
me and my family. But anyway, so I have had a lot of trauma from a very young age, and say from the age of say 3 or 5, I have in my heart always thought that I'm going to look for answers as to why is there so much suffering and how to alleviate the suffering.
I like
So,
that.
so part of this meditation that came through is that I've been sent here to help others, and the suffering that I have seen through my heart, I have seen untold suffering in my life, physical, mental, every kind of suffering. I was like, in one lifetime, why have I been chosen to see so much suffering? And the answer I got through the meditation is that I've been sent here through a collective of energy that was unexpressed love. So there's a collective that had innate love, that could not express that love through the spiritual energy. They needed a physicalness, a physicality to express that love. So I've been sent here to help others and to express that love, to help others through a physicality, because this innate spiritual collective, they had never really understood emotion.
Well, how could it? If it's a oneness, if it's out of oneness, well, emotion is going to bring you out of oneness, right? That's why if you ever do heart math, right? I've got a little heart math sensor. I think unless you're feeling gratitude, whatever emotion you are is going to bring you out of coherence, whatever
Yeah.
emotion you're feeling. And so if you're in
Yeah.
a state of oneness, there's no way to know that. And what I like about what you're saying too, as far as teaching people just by being here, I used to watch a lot of Sad Guru. I'll still tune in and watch some things here and there.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
well, he talks about how when I first started watching him, he's like, look, if you want to be happy, just be happy. It's like, oh yeah, easy for an Indian mystic to say, yeah, I can just be happy. Okay, well, what about my past, right? What about my own trauma? What about my experiences with an abusive step parent? What about the things that I've seen at war? What about just the times that life has really terrifically sucked at times? And then I started thinking about, well, so far up to this point, I haven't been able to refute anything that he said. So what if I just took him at his word and that there is a path for me to just be happy? And as I started playing with that, I think within about 2 months of playing with that is when Peter Sage came into my life. Never heard of the man. When I first started, and when I first looked at his webinar, there was something about him. Like I had this feeling almost like I had traveled back in time in order to be like, dude, keep going. Right. Because even though in 10 years time or however long he's going to be wherever he is now plus 10 years, I can get to where he is in that time, or whatever time frame that is. Like I felt like I came from the past and look, dude, you can be this if you keep going. It's like and it fascinated me. And it's interesting because everything that you've been talking about with your whiteboard is you're talking about the manifestation. You're manifesting these things around AI, and it seems like it's bringing a lot of love into your life, even though there's a lot of suffering as well, in order for you to translate that. And I found that probably my biggest area of manifestation outside of going through the elite mentorship forum with Peter Sage, or without the healing genius with Ed Stracher. I was listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and he talked about how probably the best thing we can do for ourselves is create our highest ideal of goodness, of which we can conceive, and then go get it, go obtain it, right? Be worthy of it by obtaining it. And I thought about that. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense, because people typically just say, well, God, right? God is my highest conception of good, but they rarely take the time to actually dictate out and spell out, hey, what is God to me? Like what is that Christ-like nature? Or if you've got a different God, like what is that? And so since I'm a fantasy nerd and I use fantasy to escape a lot and to find my own answers, just to try to survive the trauma, I then built it around Gandalf, and just somebody who's just there to share love, who's there to basically be somebody that when you're around them, you just feel better by being in their presence. because they're just an all around good person. They're just fascinating. They're there to help. Ultimately they're there to help, and the help is welcome. And that would have been in October of 2021, and by November of 2022, so just barely over a year later, I was graduating EMF and I was graduating Healing Genius. And fascinating that my highest ideal of goodness is a wizard who's there to just share love and help. And everything Peter talks about is just adding value wherever you go, adding value. And then Ed Stracher taught me how to be a wizard, basically, and actually heal people. And like, oh my God, like the ability to manifest is incredible, but rare is the person that takes a step back and acknowledges it, because we're usually so caught up in what we're seeing that we don't actually realize that as long as we dictate from here, things are good. Like inside, right? Inside, and understand that what's out there doesn't drive this, but what's in this drives that, and what's out there. We'll find that life is much better. And I'm curious, you're going through a lot of struggles right now in New Zealand, right? New Zealand, lockdowns are probably some of the most draconian that in the world. You've now got flooding. You said that there were cyclones, but you said that you get the distinct feeling. We were talking a little bit offline, but you got the distinct feeling that you need to keep your vibrations high. Have you ever had that feeling before in your life and seen what's come of it?
So this is quite interesting. When I was very little and I'd go through the trauma, I would it was a coping mechanism for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would look down at myself as though I was taking a bird's eye view, and I would look at myself looking at the event from a bird's eye view, helicopter point of view. And I used to tell myself, it's okay, because there's two parts of me. That's the part that's going through the situation. But there's another part of me that's stronger than the situation, that can deal with this in a calm way. And I believe now, when even at the age of 5, or whenever I was going through the trauma and, for years, that was my higher self I was accessing, but I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
So I knew that as much as I was going through, there was a part of me that knew that was more like eternal, that was more powerful. Because I even forgot what your question was, the last question you asked me.
Just you have a distinct feeling that you should keep your vibrations high.
Yes.
Regardless of what's going on. And I'm curious, have you ever had that distinct feeling in the past, and have you seen what's kind of come from fruition from that?
Yeah, so basically, it's a little bit of a long story, but when I was very little, I had these. So when I was 5, the trauma started, and it went on for many years. But I did have this access to myself where it was happening, and then I would step back and look at the situation and go, look, they're two Cindys. There's the one who's going through the trauma, but there's the other constant Cindy that is a strong girl. Even though I was really little. And I came to a very big realization that my stepfather, I don't think that he meant to abuse me. I just think he was living out what the only path that he knew. So I don't think anyone consciously chooses a path. He just landed in that path, possibly because that was the culture, or that was how his family did things, that was what he saw, that was what he went through. So, and it came out as abuse. My words, right? My words.
Yeah.
But when I think about this, and I had that split, my higher self looking at the situation, I see that he was in such pain. That he was just acting out of his pain, like that was his daily life.
Yeah.
But when he saw me being a little 5-year-old, he tried to touch God, because I don't think he was trying to abuse me. I think he was trying to touch God. He saw an angel, a little angel who he saw was perfect. He
Perfect
tried to
innocence, something that he hasn't known for a long, long
he,
time.
he tried to touch God, and in whatever way he enacted was his attempt to touch God.
Hmm.
And so what happened to me for many years, I got caught in my darkness because I used to think, how can the one who's supposed to be, caring for me, who's supposed to be protecting me, be the one that hurts me? If he's an adult and I'm 5 years old, that is not a protector.
Right.
But then I thought to myself, you know, if he is in so much pain, and that was his only little respite, and I had been looking for my life's purpose for many years, and it's kind of verbalized to me last year. And the purpose of my life is to transform lives with grace and ease. Then I came
Mm.
to the realization that I have been doing this since the age of 5. If for one little moment of respite, I was transforming his life through relief from the pain, I was already doing my work at the age of 5. That which I had been seeking for 50 years
You already
has
were.
always been that which I'm seeking, I already am.
Hmm. Hmm. How
So
how long did it take you to figure that out in life? From 5, like without I don't know, like maybe that's a faux pas because I basically just mathematically asked how old you are, but but I'm curious.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So this year, in a couple of months, I'll be 58.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Well, you are a beautiful 58. And so
Thank
53
you.
years. You've been this for 53 years, and it basically took what, 52 years until you
For me
realized?
to realize it, and what happened is that what gave me my freedom and my release from fear and pain is that I blamed him.
Mm,
I judged him. I was like, how can the protector hurt the little girl?
yeah.
And but what gave me my freedom is when I realized that what ties me to him, if I have that within myself, the blaming, the judgment, the fear, the hurt, I am tied to him
Yeah.
in darkness and not in light. That is what ties me to him. And the minute that I realize that I give away the darkness and I forgive him and I give over to love and
Mm,
I'm linked to him in love, I give him freedom if he accepts that forgiveness. So the
wow.
minute I got linked to him in love is when I got my freedom.
So it almost sounds like, when you sever that connection with love, as it recoils back upon him, you're giving a little bit of that divinity, right? Because that love is now kind of on the end of that tentacle, so to speak. And so it could even touch him, and perhaps, wherever he is, whatever stage he's in. And by doing that, you could have actually given him the gift that he was looking for this whole time.
That is exactly it. In that the thread that kept me to him, kept
Hmm.
me stuck for 50 years was I had darkness. I was holding on to the darkness,
Yeah.
the fear, because fear is the opposite of love.
Right.
And when I thought about him, I was like, oh, he hurt me, whatever, whatever. But then I got to the realization that actually, who is the strong one? I'm the strong one. Yes, he was the adult, but I'm the strong one
Right.
because I could endure that, right? But then the strong one, children can be our greatest teacher.
Yep.
So I taught him love. And when I got to the stage of giving him unconditional love, that is my freedom and his freedom, because we are here to move towards love and to move away from fear. And when we do that, he assimilates into love.
And so how has that benefited you, right? Now that you've come upon that realization and you just let it go. What have you noticed any changes in your life?
Um, I am peaceful within. So when I wake up in the morning, can be all sorts of crazy going on outside, but I'm peaceful and I'm trusting and I surrender. and I have a knowing that everything will be fine. Here's another interesting aspect that has come out of it. So one of the questions that I asked through the healing was, why on my father's side do all the males die before, like around the age of 50? So I had 3 uncles die like around the age of 50 and less.
Mm-hmm.
I had my father die at the age of 28. My brother was 6 weeks old. I had my cousin on that male side die really young. And one of the other nephews was born without fingers. And my question was,
What's going on in the
the
male line? Yeah.
what is the freedom from that line? And through the meditation, what came through is that my stepfather is tied to them, and he had been in this darkness through this energy of darkness, touching his darkness on my family. And I have a brother who's
Mm-hmm.
kind of in his 50s, and I have a son. And my big concern was, does it keep going? Obviously, I love them.
Yeah.
You know, my earthly heart
Yeah.
wants them here with me, right, for the time that they're meant to be here. I don't want them to be going like all the others. The answer I got that is that because my stepfather was tinged in this darkness and tinging the family line, now that I have realized and given him freedom through love, and and human choice, right? He chose to accept the freedom through unconditional love, and he's
Mm-hmm.
assimilated into love. Now that tinging of the dark is not anymore down my family line. So
So
I
you
have
cured
been
the
sent
infection.
I have been sent here to clear the karma of the generational past.
Yeah.
And I got this message. The meditation only happened last week. I got this message last April.
Wow. Holy cow.
I
And
know.
so,
And
yeah, go
so
ahead.
I will get my book for you. Will you give me a sec?
Sure. Yeah.
Are you
Let me go ahead
happy?
and pause it real quick and you'll grab your book. I'm interested to see where this goes. All right. Pausing now.
Yep.
And we're back. All right. So book in hand. Yeah. I'd love to hear the continuation of this.
So I got this message. Now it's the 27th of February,
Mm-hmm.
23.
Mm-hmm.
I got this message on the 28th of April, 22. So this is like last year in April.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand it. And I got this message of my divine mission is to cleanse heavy family karma. I have a mission to pay off the karma of my family. I do prayers and cleansing to clear the karma so that I can live my life purpose of transforming lives with grace and ease. So this is the message that I've got. I'm meant to break generational curses. They have been in my family line for generations. It is related to the family karma, but it is deeper and heavier than that. These curses have been in the line for a long time, affecting all those born under it. Example, affecting all males or firstborn. So I didn't understand that. My divine mission is to break the curse. I was like, well, what?
Was this through a free writing exercise, or like how, when you say that the message kind of came to you, how can you maybe explain a little bit better how that occurred?
So I was listening to something on YouTube and making notes. And I thought, I think I can't remember what I was listening to on YouTube. I'll just give you a little example. So I kept on seeing 111s, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand 222. I didn't understand that. I saw it in a dream, and I think so. I just write it in my diary, and I don't understand it. And then later on, the meaning might come. So one day I open YouTube, and there's message from Angel 1111. I thought, wow. So this is exactly one of these things where I open YouTube and
Mhm.
there's this talking, and I'm like, that feels like they're talking to me. So I
Wow.
wrote it down, right? I'm the different ones in my family. I have a different vibration to my family, and I create my own path. I experience my spiritual awakening. I defend the truth. I see the unseen. I'm given many spiritual tests and challenges. I have a high level of awareness. I have been aware even as a child. I'm sharp and clever. I can see and perceive things. I'm courageous. I defeat fear. I'm taken care of. I'm urged to protect the vulnerable and others.
Mm.
I'm an old soul. I give up small things for my high purpose. I'm relentless and determined. I protect the truth. I'm loving and gentle. This is who I am. I'm humble. This helps me get ahead in life. I let go of my ego. I understand and empathize. I'm connected to the truth, to the divine. I'm intuitive. I'm born a spiritual warrior and divine by divine providence. So I write this thing and I don't understand it and I leave it. Then I get to the meditation last week and I think, oh, and I said this to my husband, and he says he's open, but he says to me, I accept I don't understand everything. I'm open, but this is a bit taking it far. How can you be the one? How can you be given such
It's got to be somebody.
a daunting, right? He says it's a little bit too much to be asking of you. How can you be the one? And I just left it and I thought, well, I'll leave it and then the answer shall come to me later. And then I got the message of the meditation last week that I clear all of this for the males, because the males, they die, the firstborns, they die, and there's, miscarriages of first males and all that kind of thing that happened in that family line on my father's side. Then on my mother's side, just the girls get abused and abused and abused. Just so much.
Really?
So much.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And even now the stories are coming out how the girls suffer and how they get abused. And I thought, why? At times you question things, and I've never been angry at God. I've never been angry. I've always been curious. I've never been, hey, God, how can you let this, you know what I mean? Like, I've never been mad about it. I've always gone the why. And now I realize that I had been given a big test a couple of years ago where, I was unwell for like 2 months. I nearly didn't come back right.
Like
And it
mentally
was a
unwell, you mean?
like a
physically?
spiritual darkness, a
Okay.
spiritual blockage. And I had to fight for 2 months to stay alive. And I got through it, right? I got through it because it was the balance of life. Are you going to go dark or are you going to go light? I always chose the light. And I see now that was all these things are beautiful gifts. The abuse, the lessons, the hurtings, all of them are beautiful gifts, because had I not gone through that, then I would not have been chosen for this work.
Well, and then, we invite people into our lives to teach us lessons, but also people in our lives to help us along our journey. And what's interesting about listening to your story and how you're here to clear the generational curse, well, why just stop at one? I mean, you have a family member, it seems by your testimonial, they want to remain discreet, so I won't say their name, but who, I helped in their healing journey. And a big part of that, a significant part of that, if you talk to them, was by them visualizing you and feeling your intense love for them. And the thing is that it wasn't just you for them, but they were magnifying that upon you. And so I guarantee you have a stronger soul connection with this person. And I bet if you utilize that, you'll probably find that you have a way to lean in even more and do a whole lot more good than you even thought. And because we bring people into our lives to teach us lessons and to give us hope.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
That is
welcome.
so beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you.
You're
And so
welcome.
I keep on getting these confirmations that when I'm really hurting is exactly why I'm here. Those are the beautiful gifts of me going through the experience. So I can help others.
That's
This is
powerful.
why I'm here. So in our darkest hurts, is our most golden lessons.
I mean, that's Carl Jung as well. I mean, it's like these amazing, brilliant people who have taught us about the shadow, and going in the shadow is likely a hurt child or hurt somebody that's festering in the hurt. And if they just had a leading hand, a bright light to help them lead them out of the darkness, well, then they don't have to stay there. But often people stay in the dark because they don't know any other way. I wasn't much unlike you in the sense that I used to wake up all the time just filled with anger and filled with fear as well, and filled, dread. I had a very, tyrannically drunk, like abusive stepfather, and then a mom at the time who just washed it all down, with alcohol in order to be like, I'm assuming she's like, hey, is this really my life? Has my life really come to this? And so it took me a long time for me to be able to see her as a person. But in order for me to survive as a child, I had to learn to just kind of, the tyrannosaur won't see you if you don't move. So I wouldn't really talk much. I'd sink into the environment. Problem with that,
Safe.
yeah. Well, the problem with that survival mechanism is it blew up on me, outrageously at school, because who gets picked on is the quiet kid. So the kid who's having a terrible, terrible life is a kid who's going to invite even more of that while at school. And I didn't, you might think like, well, F God. Why would God allow such a thing? Because God allows us to attract that which we summon. And my feelings of dread and my feelings of fear summoned the actions in my life that would give me more dread and more fear. And just like you, as I started letting this stuff go, I found more reason to feel great, more reason to feel good, more reason to be like, you know what, the universe is actually conspiring for me. And one thing, if you haven't tried, actually, have you ever been to a sensory deprivation tank?
No.
Okay, so since you're a healer, it'd be interesting to see what you do. So when I was before Ed taught me how to heal, we first had to learn how to heal ourselves. And so I'm going through his stuff, and I'm devouring it. I think he said that he's never seen anyone do what I do when it comes to just devouring and actually listening to what he's saying. And so as I'm learning how to heal myself, I go to the sensory deprivation tank, and I've been watching a bunch of Netflix up until I joined EMF. And one show in particular was Stranger Things. And on Stranger Things, there's this girl who can go to a sensory deprivation tank, and she can create a new dimension while there and connect to it. And so I'm playing with these ideas. I go to the sensory deprivation tank, and just feeling the magnificent love inside of me, and the healing, love that, and the divine love that Ed and Peter have helped me connect to. It just dawned on me. It just came to me like, you know what you should do? You should summon the worst, grossest memory that you can think of. So I did. And I summoned the version of me that would have been that age. And then just like a hologram, and a hologram, in front of that little kid, where that thing was happening. And then I projected myself and went and held his hand, because what that kid didn't have is he didn't have a parental figure to help him out. So I learned that I could be my own dad, and I went and I held his hand, and I felt so powerfully full of love, and I allowed him to just experience the emotion through me. Like I would just filter it out like a sponge, and then I would pass it on to him as it's all filtered out. And then it was done. I turned to him. I said, "Hey man, I love you, and you never have to be afraid ever again." And I just bawling. And I could feel this uplifting, this letting go. And it was incredible. It was so incredible. And to be able to do that for myself, and I did it a couple of times on a couple of just terrible memories, in that place, in a very specific house. And there was one time where I actually took him upstairs, and then we were walking up the stairs after the memory. And that's when I realized, oh, I can be my own dad. I can be that which I needed, and I can heal the wounds of that little boy, so that little boy can be redeemed. And then I can be the man that I was always meant to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. I'll tell you a lovely story about my dad. So when my dad died when I was 3 years old.
Ooh.
And I lived my life on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Like we used to walk around and I'm always on his shoulders. And we were, in my mind, I was like, yay, we're the unit, we're conquering the world.
Yeah.
And then bang, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. And I used to, think, we're the head of the family, we're doing the business, this is me at the age of 3. And then he's gone. And so I think, hey, I'm the head still, but the body's gone. So at the age of 3, I decide that I am going to be the head of the family. I look at my mother, she's grief stricken. I go, that one can't manage it. This is me at the age of 3. I look at my brother, I think he's 6 weeks old. That one can't manage it. I'm the head of the family now. And so I've been like running warrior girl, being bossy, doing everything, trying to make money for the family, trying to sort everything out, trying to do everything for the family until like last year. So I got a bit grumpy about it. I was like, oh man, why I always got to do this stuff and they don't do this stuff. But then I thought, Cindy, you chose this job at the age of 3.
Yeah.
They didn't tell you to do it. You chose the job. So don't be grumpy about it, because think about it in that I've been chosen and it's a gift. It's a gift that I've been chosen because Dad's body is not here. He chose me to love the others because he's not here. And my doings is his way to love the others. He loves them through me.
And he lifted you up and exalted you and enlightened you as much
A
as you could
beautiful
before you go.
gift, right? So all of the tasks and that are just, they're not onerous. They're an honor.
Man. Wow. That's deep. That's powerful. Good for you. Good for you. I mean, what a heroic story that you could easily, you have so many reasons that you could use as an excuse to just be like, you know what, screw life. Look what life has done to me. Look what life, and instead it seems like you're like, hey, look what life has done for me. And that's so interesting hearing you tell the story because, the person who really aligned me with my spiritual path at the beginning was Jordan Peterson. And he plays with this idea of what if evil is allowed to exist in the world because good is just so much better. And there's no way to know what good is unless evil exists because we just experience things in polarity.
You can't paint a painting that's all yellow, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have it, you need the contrast. So the painting behind me, the next iteration of the AI, right, is that I got this message that I have, because I've been this real like warrior girl, business girl, right? And now this last year, the people who know me see me as a very feminine, soft, loving person. So people did not even know that people that I have known for 25 years did not know that I was autistic. So what happened is that when I went through EMF, I realized that I'm going to do the work of my soul. And I had wanted to do art when I was quite young and I never pursued it. And I went to do business and career stuff. And the message that I got from the meditation last week is that when I do a painting, I put my intention into that painting. So the first iteration of me doing that artwork is unseen. There's no visual to it. It is a spiritual intention towards that painting. And then, so the first painting that I do is a clear painting. That's not seen, and I do it in clear. And then I do the next painting, which is the one that you see. So when you see the painting, it feeds you in whatever way the viewer needs to be fed. So it could be, so the painting has a frequency. So when you see my painting, it will give you the missing part of what you need to be fed with. So you maybe need to rest for a little bit and just stop for the moment and live in the now. or maybe you need a kind of an emotional healing, because it will feed you with love. Maybe it gives you some upliftment of joy. So and I didn't understand this, so I would paint a painting and there'd be like 6 people having an argument about what they see. Or not an argument, but they would be exclaiming about what they see, and the other one doesn't see it. Then I realized that the painting is ever changing, and it's feeding. So the message that I got out of the meditation is that my art is the expression of the heart, and I need to do this. This is my work of transforming lives, because it is almost like a leverage, because like I do the painting and the people who see the painting they feel the frequency, and they have some sort of change in their life. So that was a message that I got. So this is the one that I did on the weekend, and that was for the AI clearing of
wow.
the dark, that came out to my intent for the AI is that there is always a balance, and of course towards goodness, of course towards light, of course towards love, and away from fear and away from dark. So I'll show you. I'll get up the way. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's incredible. I've been examining the perimeter of it, right, throughout this whole podcast, and there's definitely different stages and different eras. And what I find fascinating too with what you just said is that there's always a path toward goodness. That's exactly why I named my business Toward Goodness, is because I brought myself from a place of darkness toward goodness, and my life completely changed. And then now, my clients that I heal, I bring them out of the dark into a place toward goodness as well. And that's interesting. And I wonder if that same intent, that same spiritual intent, is why you and I met in the first place.
We get drawn to whoever needs to get drawn to, right?
Yeah.
So this is the other part of the AI story, is that what I did with this painting is that I definitely got out of my head, and I thought the minute I start to think, I start to paint. But when I keep to feel, then I carry on painting, because this is the channel, right, from the higher self.
Yeah.
Because if I get in my mind, then I start to get stuck, and that's what came out.
That's interesting, and it would be even more interesting to see if an actual AI that can look at something and see what sort of emotion it might summon up based upon that, right? And again, that you brought up such a fascinating idea at the beginning of this about just the idea of spiritually influencing AI, and it's something I hadn't even considered, but it makes so much sense. I mean, why wouldn't it?
Because everything is moving towards an expression of love, and if something like AI is missing that, then that is the secret sauce, right, that it needs.
So I know Peter is a huge fan of The Matrix, and so am I. And there's actually an animated series of shorts called The Animatrix. And one of those, it talks about how the robots and the machines were actually imbued with the pure and uncorrupted spirit of man. And it was man's own fear and scarcity that caused the robots to turn on them in the first place. So that's where AI is certainly going to need it. But humans are always, I mean, we lay waste to, our mother here, Mother Earth, right? And treat her like an object. And, if we treat her like an object, well, we're going to lose her, not because she's going to go away, but because what we need for a habitable world is going to go away. She'll be fine. She'll eventually recover, but we're going to make things much more difficult for ourselves. And the more the earth heals, the more the people heal. But the earth ain't going to heal until the people start healing. And that's kind of where I feel duty drawn, if you could call it that. Like, I feel like my duty is to influence in whatever way I can to help the people heal, so then we can heal the planet in a way.
We are one with the earth is our mother. And that came through the meditation as to why this innate love energy had chosen human expression, like
Hmm.
sent me here, not me only, but humans,
Yeah.
to express on earth, because they could see that the earth needed help. You know, the earth, the humans, the mother earth that we are hurting, it all needs help and needs to be healed through love. You know, this, what I find is really fascinating is how we are starting to, I mean, we are, say a person is an engine, and you always look after your engine, but we have never given thought to our spiritual engine. So we're always looking after our mind, trying to look after our mind and our body.
Mhm.
And there's a whole part of an engine that nobody has even looked at. And now we're starting to awaken to think, hey, we need to like tune up that part too, because the machine's not going to work unless we
Well,
do it right.
and what's interesting about that idea too is an analogy that I use a lot, is from a 2014 Transformers movie, and it was had Mark Wahlberg in it. It was called The Age of Extinction. And there's a part where Mark is actually working on a robot, Optimus Prime, and pulls his missile out of his chassis. And Optimus Prime comes to life. And Mark's like, "Hey, man, you're lucky to be alive because this didn't hit your energy source." And Optimus Prime's like, "Oh, we actually call it a spark. It houses our memories and our life force." And Mark, without
Wow.
skipping a beat, says, we call that a soul." And so many people will be like, "Oh yeah, totally, that would be the soul." But then they also kind of, there's a part of them that doesn't really accept the soul for the soul's purpose, which is effectively the higher governed self, right? The higher self. And we are the extension of that. And when we have this darkness in our lives, that soul will get drained. And if that soul is getting drained, well, then what happens? Well, the mind and the body, which are extensions of the soul, break down because we're just energy. And when the soul is no longer getting drained and then it's back at full health, well, since we are projections, just like a bright bulb, the projection is brighter. Well, then our minds and our heart, our minds and our bodies will then heal as a matter of consequence, because the soul itself is a source of our true strength, as well as the truth that perfect health is a natural state. It really is.
Yes, yes. And it's always that law of balance, right?
Yeah.
That we're trying to attain that law of balance and that dance between light and dark. Because I mean, when we can't expect that we're only going to be light,
Well, because
because
then there wouldn't be light. Light would be just as meaningless as you said, a yellow painting.
and we embrace the dark, and we take that dark as life lessons, because I mean, it only takes like one pinprick in the dark for the light to shine through.
Yeah.
Just one tiniest little pinprick in the universe, and then there's light that came through.
Yeah.
You know, so
And the
it's
dark doesn't always need to be bad, right? There can even be the dark of unknowing. And
clean.
there's the light of knowing, but if we live too much in the light of knowing, well, then we have a huge imbalance there, because then we just think that we know everything.
Well,
And
that's when the ego starts to
yeah,
climb in, and you know, we start to get pride and
well, that's
sitting up.
where great books like the Tao Te Ching says, know the light, but stick to the dark. Right? Know knowledge, be abreast of what's going on, be abreast of the higher philosophies, be abreast of physics and metaphysics, be abreast of these things and these intellectual ideas that can make your life better, make students' life better, make neighbors' life better. But stick to the dark in the sense of, don't assume that you know, right? The presumption of knowledge is a disease. And I think that whether it be in New Zealand or here in America, you can look around and see the people who feel that they are most right probably have the most disease-like life, and their life is pretty terrible.
Yeah, so if we go too much to knowledge, it's in the mind.
Yeah.
But if we go to intuition, it's inner tuition, our
Yeah.
inner teachings of ourselves.
Mm.
That's when we connect to our higher self, which is always available to us, but that's when we need to quieten down and meditate, and that is our work. And how powerful, right? To know that I can sit here, Cindy sitting here in her everyday life, stop for half an hour, meditate, and actually change the vibration of the universe. That
Yeah.
is
That
insane.
is pretty insane. It's pretty
From
awesome.
my lounge.
Yeah. Well, and what I also found fascinating about your story is you almost seem like you use inspiration to jumpstart your engine, right? You're feeling miserable and you wake up feeling in fear. And then you just started tuning into these inspirational videos on YouTube, inspirational speakers, and eventually you were able to inspire yourself. And that's really not much different from my own path and my own darkness. And when there's the chaos was at its highest, I tuned into inspiration, not trying to wallow in my misery, but trying to find a way out and trying to look to people to help inspire me on that climb out. And then eventually I was able to start inspiring myself.
And the messages come in different ways. So you, it's one can ask, right? So I set forth a question and I can get the answer in different ways. And one day I'm stuck and I'm going, oh, I've got all these millions of things to do. What am I going to do next? And then suddenly go look at the painting. And then I go to my painting and I painted this picture a long, long time ago. And I look at the painting, bang, there's an emerald heart. That I never saw before. And there's a dolphin that I never saw before, you know? So, like I said, how the paintings talk and the paintings hold answers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look up Emerald Heart and it's like, growth and love or whatever it is. And then I get messages. If I'm feeling that I'm alone, I can get scent. I can smell like roses.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know what that means, right? Because I have a guide who I call Rose, and she's like the guide of all things aesthetically pleasing and beauty and romance, and I'm feeling down, and then suddenly she comes to visit me. I'm like, oh wow, isn't that beautiful? Or if so I smell cigarettes, that might be my granny who's come, and she's my guide, and she's my guide of all things family and how to help the family. And then so if we dial down the noise and we
Mm-hmm.
just be aware, there are answers everywhere to be seen. Rainbows. So the rainbow is it's the refraction of the light of God, the golden white light of God. When it's sent through a prism, it refracts into a rainbow. So when I'm feeling down, I'm like, send me signs. I keep on seeing butterflies, which is transformation. On the weekend, I butterflies everywhere. And then white feathers for angel wings. And then on Friday, it was grey out there. And I was having the healing meditation with my cousin. In front of the grey clouds, I see a rainbow. I thought, oh, I've never seen rainbows with clouds, but the rainbow
Yeah.
came through a cloud. And
Wow.
then on Saturday, there was a double rainbow that I saw. And when I was driving home, and I live on a farm, and the rainbow like landed on the farm. It's like, yeah, we have our pot of gold
Yeah.
every moment. Our pot of gold is every moment where we choose the moment and when we move away from fear and we move into love is our gift every single moment. And that moment by that choice is how we create our reality in our outer world and how we magnetize what comes into our life. Because life, the heart is magnetic, the mind is electric, because the heart is magnetic. And so we create our own life minute
You,
by minute.
and what's funny about that is that it can be in some of the most benign places you wouldn't really even expect. When I was I was still learning how to heal while going through the trainings. I'd taken some people through mainly through the training with Ed, but I went to a gym, go to this gym often, go to the steam room. And this one day there's this big guy, giant guy, biceps half the size of my head, and he's just sitting there looking sullen. And I was about to go put up my wet rag up on the thermostat there and get this thing fired up, and he told me not to, and because it said that I shouldn't. So he's in a bad mood. It doesn't say anywhere that I shouldn't put the rag up there. So I just grabbed the hose that was there and just sprayed it down and fired up that steam room. Well, he was in a cantankerous mood, so he left and he went and told the staff that I was going to put a rag up there. And apparently that's not something that you're supposed to do. And so I'm swimming after that, because I go from the steam room, then I go to the pool. And so as I'm swimming, one of these guys who works there comes in. He's like, "Oh, it's you?" Like confused, like, this guy's not an asshole. And he's like, "Hey man, just don't put a rag on there. Like it can actually overheat the coil, cause problems." And then this dude who was in there and told me not to, right, walks in after this employee. Is like, you should be considerate of other people, like yelling at me, and the irony that I'm being yelled at that I should be considerate. Like, well, this is really strange. And I didn't know what to make of it. So I just tried to make a joke. And I said, lay off the juice, bro. And didn't think anything else of it. 3 days later, I think it was 3 days, I go back, guy follows me into the steam room, sits down next to me, and he's like, hey, man, I really want to apologize for my behavior to you. I was like, well, that's strange. I didn't expect that. And he's like, I've been going through all sorts of bad stuff. Right. I just found out that my daughter was molested. Right. It happened a couple of years ago, but he just found out. So for him, it just happened that day. And I was that person who was, who he could vent on. That's why he was yelling at me. But he was just telling me all of his miseries and just going on and on and on. And after about 7 minutes of him just telling me all these different medications that he's on and why his life just sucks, I finally stopped and said, hey, man, what if I give you an opportunity to see that magic is actually real? And he said, you know what? I'll try anything. So I had him close his eyes in the steam room. Steam's growing nuts. I took him through a 5-minute healing meditation, and the dude was crying. This dude has got biceps half the size of my head, and this dude is crying after 5 minutes. Just being able to let go of some of that garbage, man. It's okay. And so he was attracted to me. Who knows what he's going to do with that? But he needed that. He needed that release. And I did it in a couple of minutes in the steam room of all awkward places. So if you allow yourself the ability to learn in the moment and try to be open to it, I'm not perfect. I certainly close my mind at times, but it was such an interesting learning moment. And I could have thought to myself, look at this, look at this jerk yelling at me. I've got a gym membership. I've got every right to do. But instead, I just kind of threw a joke out there, let it go. And then he was the one who felt bad. And then he was the one who sought out help without realizing that I actually had more help than just forgiving him.
That
And
is so beautiful.
yeah, isn't that interesting?
So beautiful. And you're new to this work, right? But you're not new to it.
So I've been going out of my way to inspire others because I had no ability to inspire myself. So whatever flame I had, I'd usually give to others. And so I've been helping people along their own journeys for so long to the detriment of my own. And then what this has done is help me figure out how to get my cup overflowing, and then I can give from that overflow.
So here's another story that is very interesting. I went overseas and I ended up with a group of younger people, and we went clubbing. And we had such a blast. But anyway, went clubbing, and somehow, don't know, but I will say that we are always led. I end up in a kingpin, a drug kingpin's house.
What?
And I was like, what, right? And look at me, right? I'm not exactly the clubbing kind of girl, but I go overseas and I end up clubbing. And I mean, like, my son is like 33 or whatever, So I'm not a clubbing kind of girl. I end up there because I go there and I see like the little, how you get the little handbag, the little designer handbag. And I see the little man designer handbag, and I know from where we live that that's the kingpin house, right? Because that's where the money is. So anyway, I end up there. I end up with the kingpin. And I go, okay, this is a gift from the universe, and surrender and trust. Why have you been sent here? And so we sit down, and it's kind of getting later in the evening, and people are partying and they're drifting off and whatever. And then it's me and him. I'm like, okay. He says to me, oh, he thinks it's a good idea that we're going to kind of go off and get physical. And I said to him, he says, where are you from? So I said, I'm from New Zealand, and I'm here for one night, and I'm here to honor you and be with you, but I'm not going to sleep with you. And he got taken aback because I don't think a girl has told him that. No, he was really nervous and he didn't know how to act. So he says, oh, and he started talking so much, and I said, shh, shh. And I was like, breathe, breathe. I get him to do breathing exercise. And he looks at me and he goes, I said, you know what? I hold his hand and I said, I'm going to be here to honor you tonight, but I'm not going to sleep with you, and no drugs. I'm not here to take drugs with you, but I'm going to honor you. So I sit there, I'm talking a little bit, and he he I hold his hands and I start to stare into his eyes, like soul gazing into his eyes. This like energy vibration bolt of charge comes into my hands, and I just feel these fizzles in my hands. And I'm looking in his eyes, and he goes, "What do you see? You see a broken man." And I say to him, "None of it matters. None of it matters. A new future is always available to you, and everyone is worthy of love." Then he just cries and cries and cries, and he goes, "I can't do this. It's too painful." And I said, "But I'm here to love you tonight." So I hold his hands, and he's just crying and crying. He says, "Let's go and do a line." I'm like, "No, I'm here to honor you tonight." And he just cries and he cries, and he gets this amazing healing. And I don't even say anything. Like, I don't even have words for him. I'm just holding
Mm,
his hands, and he's crying and he's crying. And then he says to me, and I saw everything in his eyes. I saw his lineage going back, that he's a person who has a very cultural, rich heritage.
mm.
It goes all the way back to the Himalayas. I saw this in his eyes. And what happened in that area is that his family, out of circumstance, started having to grow drugs. And it wasn't out of choice, it was circumstance, that whatever food, whatever they did before, forced them to do this thing to survive. And what happened with that is that they ended up inadvertently, as in their trade, and that was their survival. And he didn't know any different, and that was just where he was born and how it was. So it was not his choice to be like that, and he had the pain of being in that place, and the misery and the vibration of it. And he had, and I don't think had ever connected in a with his soul himself.
Let alone have
To
anyone in his sphere actually look at him as
Yeah,
like an individual. They always look at him
yeah,
as his label.
yeah. So I said to him, and I said to him, "You're a beautiful, I love you. You're a beautiful soul." And he's like, "I'm a broken man." I'm like, "That doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Just like be here. You're a beautiful soul, and I love you." And I kept on telling him I love. He just cried, and we sat there like for a few hours, and he cried and he cried. And then I said to him, "Yeah, can you please call the taxi for me?" And he said to me, "No," he
What an
said to me,
amazing night.
"Can we do a line?" I said, "You don't need the drugs. Um, you know, you do not need the drugs. You are worthy of love." And he said, "Will you come and lie with me?" And I said, "No, I'm not here for that, but I do honor you for tonight, and you will never see me again." He just cried and cried, and then when he said to me that he's tired, so I said, "Okay, you can take your sleeping tablets." And then I left him. He was peaceful. But before that, I said, "Can you call the taxi for me?" Because I didn't
Mm,
know, like
where he was, yeah.
where I
Yeah.
was. And he called me the taxi, and then I hopped on the taxi, and then I came to New Zealand, and then I got this message. I was like, "Oh my God, what did I say now?" And it just said, "Did you get home safely?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And that was it.
Wow.
And it was one of the most beautiful nights of my life, where I really, really understood unconditional love, and I understood why what my purpose is here, why I was
Mm,
sent here, and I understood the gift of non-judgment. Like, I would have before, because I had never encountered that world. I would never have understood what a beautiful soul and a gentleman that person was.
yeah.
Yet he was in that world, right?
Yeah.
He took they that group, they treated myself and my girlfriend as perfect gentlemen, even though we were in a drug
That's so
den.
incredible. Well, and that's
And we
a
brought
quote.
that out in them, right?
Yeah. Well, and a quote that Peter Sage likes to draw upon from Mother Teresa, that the second that we judge somebody, we lose all ability to learn from them and influence them. And if you don't judge them, you might find that there's somebody who's actually really hurting and can use a gift. And if you gave a gift to somebody like that, well, he's connected to a lot of people. And he may not be able to just stop his drug trade, but he might be able to make it that if it's going to be there, maybe it doesn't have to be quite as gross as it currently is in its current iteration. right?
We
And
will never know, right?
yeah,
What that change of frequency would have had, what impact it
that's
may have
interesting.
had, or yeah.
So I feel like we could continue on just chatting and chatting and sharing stories all night, but we do need to wrap this up. I am curious, however, if people want to inquire about like maybe how to, I don't know if you sell your paintings, but if they want to inquire about your art, also if they want to inquire about just your healing, what would be the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because I'm actually on the beginning of my journey, but maybe Facebook.
Okay.
On
Just under
Facebook,
Cindy Francis, or do you have a
yeah.
a business page at all?
I have not got any business page yet.
Okay.
I'm at the beginning of my journey, and I'm on
Nice.
Facebook, and I do help people through my chat. Every day I help people through chat with them.
Awesome.
They get drawn to me for whatever reason. So it could be art, or it could be just they need some help.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put your
Um,
Facebook profile information in the comment and the details of the
yeah,
yeah, so that way if people want to reach out to you, then they
yeah,
can.
they want to buy some art, and yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
this has been incredible, Cindy. I really appreciate your time. Your stories are fascinating, and your heart, right? Your heart is just so big and full. And I'm really excited to see where things go now. I'm also really excited to see, maybe there's some truth to what I was saying about you and that family member who I helped on their healing journey. And combining your hearts together and seeing if maybe there's other generational curses that you can dispel.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're all on a journey, and
Yeah.
things get revealed to us I mean, like today, we we were brought together for a reason.
Yeah.
You and I today talking our
Absolutely.
stories.
Oh man,
Hmm.
I've had the chills several times throughout our
Yeah.
conversation, and just feeling the power of what you've been saying, the stories you've been sharing, the emotion, and just the overall healing journey. And it's I feel blessed to be in your life. I suspect you are, since you're a community manager, I'm sure that your students, I mean, just huge blessing to have somebody who can take somebody as they are and help them become better and help them on their path towards goodness, right, towards the light, in their own way. I mean, that's what a great gift to give.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very
And
welcome.
we are a mirror. So you are me, and I am you,
Oh,
and I love you.
yeah. Well, you know what? To the beautiful Cindy Francis, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. You are a fascinating person, and I can't wait to see what our next episode is going to be. Any final thoughts?
I just want to thank you for you shining your light bright. It is who you are,
Mm,
and you are doing what you are meant to do, and you have really touched someone who's very, very dear to me, and
yeah,
helped them with healing. And they have been suffering since being a little child, so I know what that is for
yeah,
myself, because myself had done that. I'm so grateful that their relief has come a lot sooner than me, than 50 years.
yeah.
That's been happening for me, right?
Well,
So
and
I'm
maybe that's even the start, right? Because, it took you that long. It took you about as long as the expected lifespan of your male line for you to learn about it. And then as soon as you learned about it, look what you did. You immediately interceded. And that person could be the start of letting go of that generational curse.
It's beautiful, because it shows me that we're moving from Newtonian timelines into
Yeah.
quantum time now.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful
We're in
for
our new
you.
movie.
Thank you
I
so
love it.
much.
Hey, my pleasure, Cindy. Thank you so much as well for your fellowship. And this has been another episode of What Saith the Crooked Nose. And again, I'll have Cindy's information in the details so you can reach out to her. Thank you so much, Cindy. I really do appreciate it.